everyone. I hope you are having a good week. I hope you read the two creation stories in Genesis chapter 1 and 2. What do you think about the two creation stories in Genesis? Is it exactly the same or totally different? Why does one book of the Bible have two different creation stories? As an example, if you read my writing and James's writing together without seeing us, you could figure out the differences between the two writers because I am not a native English speaker and I am older than him. When we read someone's writing, we can figure out the writer's background, like culture, education, like that. And then, what did you find from the two creation stories? At least we can say that the book of Genesis was written by more than one person. Read Genesis chapter 1 and chapter 2 one more time and underline words or phrases that tell us what God created and the differences between the two creation stories. We will check it on Sunday. Now let us watch another lesson video.
Welcome to Credo Confirmation. I'm Brandon Hirsch. First things first, congratulations. By taking the steps of confirmation, you are responding to God's amazing grace. In confirmation, you will be learning God's story as found in the Old and New Testaments and the history and traditions of the church. You will also learn about the beliefs, practices, and values of Christians and the vows you will take should you choose to be confirmed. So let's get started. And the logical place to start is the beginning. I'm sure you've heard about the 6 days of creation in which God created everything. On the first day, God created the space, the earth, and the light, and separated light from darkness. On the second day, God separated the sky from the waters. The third day, God created land, separated land from water, and created plants. The fourth day came the sun, the moon, the planets, and the stars. On the fifth day, God created the creatures that fly in the sky and creatures that lived in the sea. And on day 6, God did two things. Created the animals that live on the land, and of course, this is where you and I come in, humans, whom were created in God's image. At the end of day 6, God looked at everything that was created and declared everything that was made was good. So let's go a little deeper. God is responsible for creating everything in the entire universe. Creation culminated with the introduction of humans, whom God created in God's image. Now that may not mean we look like God, but we share many of God's characteristics, like the ability to love, create, and show compassion. So as we learn more about who God is, we learn more about who we are. And when God was done, God declared every aspect of creation good. And God calls us to care for this good creation and to use the gifts and talents we have as people created in God's image so that others will see God's light shine through us.
We also talked about the preamble to the social principles page. The social principles is a basic document that the United Methodist Church made about its social issues. The social principle document is reviewed every general conference and is printed in the discipline. So we can find words or phrases that talk about what we as United Methodist Christians believe, value, are called to do, and who the three persons of the Trinity are from this document. Read this document one more time and underline the words and the phrases that talk about it. I believe no one wants to experience a broken or damaged relationship. But you all probably have experienced heartaches of broken or damaged relationships, or know a family member or friend that did. You probably also know that the main reason of these broken or damaged experiences are trust issues. Some experienced a broken relationship because of lies. Some experience broken relationships because of broken promises. The story of the first sin in the Bible is also from a trust issue. God created all things and declared all of the creation good. But when sin enters the story, God's good creation is damaged. It is not just about physical damage, but also emotional and spiritual damage, and damage done to relationships. In the chapter 3 of Genesis, the first humans, Adam and Eve, ate the forbidden fruit. They changed God's words, tried to be like God, broke their promise with God, hid from God, lied in front of God, and then shifted the responsibility to others. Then, as a result, they were sent out, shamed and naked, from the Garden of Eden. Sin is our brokenness, our separation from God, our fractured world, and our need of healing. People kept breaking their relationships with God. Adam's son Cain killed his brother Abel. Sarah left upon hearing God's promises. Moses murdered an Egyptian slave master. David committed adultery. Peter denied Jesus. Paul persecuted Christians. John Wesley, the founder of Methodism, denied Holy Communion from God to the girl who was in love with her when she married a different person. We see hatred, pollution, violence, greed, and apathy to this day. The Bible was originally written in Hebrew and Greek. In Greek, the word sin is hamartia, and it is found 227 times in the New Testament. In Hebrew, the word sin is hara, and you can find this word in Leviticus chapter 4 verse 3. Imagine shooting a bow at a target and just missing the target. Both words, hamartia and hara, symbolize this situation, missing the target, missing the mark. We all try to make right decisions every moment and be in justice, righteousness, and good relationships with all people. But Romans chapter 3:23 says, all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. We sometimes miss the target, making right decision, being justice, being righteousness, be good in the relationship. We all sin, no matter how good or bad we think we are, or how good or bad we think other people are. Every person sins. In reality, the church is full of sinners trying to live faithfully each day, falling miserable some days, and succeed in inspiring ways other days. Sin not only affects individuals who make poor decisions and damage their relationships with other people, but it also affects entire institutions, cultures, and nations. Such a corporate sin is responsible for horrors such as poverty, racism, and genocide. In the United Methodist tradition, we have a history of focusing on both personal and collective sins. We challenge individuals to be disciplined and avoid doing harm. The first of the general rules of John Wesley, the founder of Methodism, is do no harm. We also hold the church and the communities and nations in which we live to a standard of justice and righteousness. While all sin, personal and corporate, disrupts our relationship with God, no sin removes us from God's presence. In the United Methodist tradition, we affirm that God's grace surrounds us. God continues to work in our lives. Sin does not have the last word. Love does. So Romans chapter 5 verses 8 says, God proves His love for us in that while we still were sinners, Christ died for us. So there is redemption and reconciliation. So think about the meaning of sin, God's grace, and the do no harm rule, how it affects your daily life, school life, and relationships with others. Have a good week and stay healthy. See you on Sunday. Bye.
Welcome to Credo Confirmation. I'm Nicole Holmes. As you recall, our first session told the story of creation. God created the heavens and the earth and declared it good. God created us in God's image and called on humans to be caretakers of God's good creation. This session deals with the story of how things went wrong. In just the 3rd chapter of Genesis, sin enters the picture. Like the story of creation, I'm sure the story of Adam and Eve is familiar. A tree sits in the middle of the garden from which Adam and Eve are forbidden to eat, but tempted by a serpent, they take a bite out of the forbidden fruit. Adam and Eve felt shame and knew that they had sinned. By disobeying, they damaged their relationship with God. This is a story that is relatable to everyone because we're all sinners. And sin can infect entire groups, even nations, resulting in problems such as slavery, hunger, poverty, and more. Today, we'll be delving deeper into not only the consequences of sin, but also how it affects our relationship with each other and our relationship with God. But where there's sin, there's always God's grace. In Romans 3:23, Paul says, "All have sinned and fall short of God's glory." The reality is, no one can avoid the temptation to sin. The heroes of the Bible were sinners. Moses murdered an Egyptian slave owner. David committed adultery. Your mom, your dad, your grandmother, you, all sinners. And when we sin, it separates us from God, which hurts our relationship with not only God, but with other people as well. And while we all sin and stray from God, it's God's grace that allows us to restore our relationship because God is always eager and ready to welcome us back.